the ex-Manhattan Madam, Kristin Davis. Kristin, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm curious. I mean, people in New York know Roger Stone. People across the country know Roger Stone from his association with Donald Trump and what they've seen in the past couple years with his media appearances. You know him very personally. The person you're seeing on television, this defiant person who doesn't seem at all worried about the consequences of his actions and what he could be facing, is that the same person he is in private?
No, not obviously. His showman in front of the press, and he has a point that he's innocent and he's going to fight the charges, but who he is in his personal life is very different. He's a family man. He's a very good and kind friend. He's an animal rights activist. Like, he's a very good person.
Is he scared about potential jail time?
Well, I mean, if the FBI came to your house with 29 people and guns, it's very intimidating. I personally went through that in my own arrest. It was very scary. So I think that there's some huge element of concern, but he's been under arrest, under investigation for 2 years. So I think he's prepared for this.
If Robert Mueller, and there is a question whether Robert Mueller would even want him as a cooperating witness, but if he did, what do you think the chances are that Roger Stone would be willing to cooperate?
I mean, he said very publicly he's not going to bear false witness against the president, so he's not going to make anything up, which I think he's a rarity because I believe that he believes that other people have lied against the president, being Cohen and also Jerome Corsi and Randy Credico. Both of these people are person one and person two lying against Roger Stone. So there's a whole lot of misinformation out there and lack of truth.
The FBI also raided not just his home down in Florida, but an apartment in Harlem. They thought you were there, right?
Right. I shared a duplex with Roger for the last couple of years. I since have moved a couple of weeks ago. There's nothing there.
What do you think they were looking for?
According to the search warrant, information regarding WikiLeaks, Guccifer, any collusion, that sort of thing.
Did Roger Stone ever talk to you about his communications with Guccifer?
To my knowledge, no. I mean, he didn't have anything other than what he's disclosed, which is a tweet conversation. From what I've been told for years now, Randy Credico is the intermediary, and I testified as such into the special counsel in August. And then 2 weeks later, Credico was subpoenaed. So I think there's a number of us, David Lugo, who was at my apartment, who's a filmmaker, who Randy Credico had filmed Roger for a documentary. He told the story in public, in front of numerous people at my apartment.
Did Roger Stone have conversations with you in 2016 about WikiLeaks and about the information that was being released and whether or how it could help Donald Trump?
In 2016, he had a conversation with me, which I also testified in front of the special counsel, that Randy Credico was his intermediary and he did not know the content of the emails, when it was coming, just that Randy Credico kept telling him something is coming.
Why was he trying to get more information?
Well, I mean, he's trying to find out what it is. I don't believe that he was ever successful.
You don't think he was ever successful?
No.
So why was he tweeting about John Podesta's time in the barrel?
Well, having been around during that time, he had Jerome Corsi doing some opposition research. I know Jerome Corsi has said something else, but I challenged Jerome Corsi to present the proof. He's released all of his other court documents. He's released his plea deal to the media. So where's the proof that Roger Stone has you covering for him? At 2016, at that time, there was no pressure on Roger for his tweet. It was a non-issue. 6 weeks later, it's an issue. So,
well, because 6 weeks later, suddenly John Podesta's emails were coming out on a daily basis.
Right, but Jerome Corsi's story is that he's covering for Roger in early August. It wasn't an issue then. He didn't need any cover then. It wasn't an issue until much later.
If you didn't know Roger Stone well, would you look at this and say to yourself, gosh, it just looks pretty coincidental, too coincidental to make sense?
I mean, I understand why people have questions. And coincidence is sometimes just coincidence, and that's all there is. I mean, I was around during that time, and his story has not changed for years to people close to him, to myself.
But his story changed in front of Congress, and he did lie to Congress, according to the special counsel. And they have transcripts where he said one thing, and then they have emails and text message text messages that contradict what he claimed. He said he didn't have any memory of having any of these discussions in documentation, and there's a ton of messages that have that. Why was he lying?
Right. Well, good example. I testified for the special counsel. I don't remember 50% of what they asked me. You're under a lot of pressure. Your adrenaline's flowing. You don't have an attorney present. It's very intimidating. I'm quite sure. And we also don't have the context in which that conversation, that testimony, we've only seen like 3 or 4 lines where he said no. How many times did you ask him? What hour was this into his testimony, and in what context? We can look at what the charge against Randy Credico, witness tampering. I personally
He told Credico to pull a character from The Godfather, go in front of Congress and say you don't know anything.
Which was clearly in jest.
But he also told him, you got to get your story lined up with mine.
Well, Roger kept saying that Randy Credico is the intermediary, and Randy has publicly denied that when a number of us were present.
Say, get your story lined up with mine, and Credico kept saying to him, Roger, just tell the truth.
No, Roger was the one saying, tell the truth. We're only seeing snippets of that conversation. Credico has been threatening Roger Stone for many, many years, using Ari Melber as a platform, which he's come on that show numerous times. And we're only seeing Roger's response, but I have personally read the emails. I've seen Randy Credico get into a fistfight with Stone after heckling me at my own campaign events. He's an awful human being.
Let me ask you this. You know this orbit better than most people do. You know Donald Trump's orbit in some ways better than most people do. I know you don't know everybody that's been involved in this, but the special counsel or the SDNY have come up with person after person who have lied about Russia. In one way or another, they've lied about Russia. Why is everybody lying about the same subject?
I don't believe the collusion happened. If it did, it didn't happen from Team Stone. So to the extent that people don't remember, I don't remember what I did a year ago. So you're asking somebody who's in the middle of a campaign who talks to hundreds of people a day
you don't say that
to remember.
Exist. I never did that.
Well, I mean, I think everybody at that time, every political journalist out there was trying to find out what WikiLeaks had. So if you're asking 10 million different people what it is and people are talking about it, you can't remember every single person you spoke with.
Do you think it's just a bunch of people who suddenly had a lapse of memory when it came to one specific subject?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the other people's intent. I only know Roger, because I've been friends with him and worked with him off and on for years. So I only know that his intent from the beginning was not to lie. He, on his own accord, testified to clear his name. So, I mean, he's not a stupid man. So obviously he's not going to go on there with the intent to lie because he wasn't even subpoenaed. He did that willingly. He was getting berated in public, in the media, destroying his political consulting business.
Does he have any regrets about 2016, the way he behaved?
I can't answer that. I believe that all he wants to do is clear his name.
Kristin Davis, thanks so much for coming in. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank